So what's happening in the war in Ukraine right now is really a tale of two completely different conflicts playing out at the exact same time. On one side, you have this brutal sweeping assault on cities and the civilians living in them. And on the other, a really surgical campaign that's aimed right at the heart of Russia's war machine. This is the story of that two-front war, where everything is being decided not just on the ground, but in the skies over cities and in the factories deep inside enemy lines.
And it all kind of kicks off with this. Just imagine in a single night, 244 projectiles. We're talking a mix of ballistic missiles and strike drones just raining down all across Ukraine. Now, that's not just a statistic. That's the sound of air raid sirens going off everywhere, of buildings shaking, and a terrifying new reality for millions of people.
And that massive barrage? It's the opening shot of the first front we're going to look at, Russia's systematic attack on Ukraine's infrastructure. This isn't about trenches and front lines in the traditional sense. No, this is a nationwide campaign aimed squarely at the very fabric of civilian life.
I mean, just look at the map. From the capital, Kyiv, all the way to Dnipro, Odesa, and Kharkiv, the targets were all the same. And we're not talking about military bases. They were hitting the things that make a city actually work. Power plants, apartment buildings, even supermarkets, and the water supply.
And the fallout from this is immediate, and it is devastating. In the port city of Odesa alone, one of these attacks left 300,000 people without power or running water. Just try to imagine that, especially in the middle of a cold winter.
And the capital was hit hard too. In Kyiv, a single attack knocked out electricity to over 2,600 buildings. You have to understand, this isn't accidental collateral damage. It's a deliberate, repeated pattern of hitting the civilian energy grid again and again.
So, what's the end game here? Well, the strategy is brutally simple. The goal, according to officials on the ground, is to make the winter energy crisis even worse. It's all about making life unbearable, to put maximum pressure, not on soldiers, but on regular, everyday citizens.
But, and this is where it gets really fascinating, while all of that was happening, Ukraine was fighting a completely different war. And this slide just lays out the strategic divide perfectly. On one side, you have civilian infrastructure, and on the other, the guts of Russia's war machine.
And that brings us to the second front we're talking about, Ukraine's surgical counteroffensive. This is all about targeted strikes that aren't designed to create terror, but to dismantle. It's a totally different philosophy of warfare.
So, a top target for them was this, Rubikon. Now, this isn't just some random unit. It's Russia's elite, super well-funded drone force. You can think of it as the brain of their whole FPV or first-person view drone operation. You know, those small, incredibly fast drones that have become such a huge part of this war. And what's really sinister is that Rubikon has been accused of using Ukrainian civilians as, basically, test subjects for their new drone technology. Ukraine's response was incredibly methodical. It was like a three-step playbook. First, they went for the brain itself and hit the command headquarters. Then, they cut off the supply of new pilots by taking out a training facility. And finally, they went right to the source and eliminated a plant that was manufacturing the drones. A total decapitation of the unit.
And the damage was just massive. In just one of these strikes on a logistics hub, they wiped out an estimated 6,000 FPV drones and their parts before they could ever even make it to the front lines. That is a gigantic blow to Russia's drone supply chain.
So after hitting the brain of the war machine, Ukraine went after its lifeblood, the oil industry. You know, the very thing that funds and fuels this whole invasion.
And is it working? Well, the numbers are pretty telling. Russian oil revenues have taken a big hit. Their pipeline deliveries are at a 15-year low, and oil producers have seen losses estimated at nearly $13 billion. This is a strategy that hits the Kremlin right in the wallet, and it hurts.
And here is where the strategy gets really clever. See, Ukraine knows it can't just completely obliterate these enormous refineries with a few drones. So instead, they're playing a long game, a strategy of attrition. They'll hit a facility, wait for Russia to start repairs, and then they hit it again. The goal is to keep these vital economic hubs permanently offline. It's about inflicting constant, sustained economic pain.
At the very same time, they're paving the way for more attacks in the future. By targeting and destroying these really high-value air defense systems, like these two Torm M2s, worth about $50 million, Ukraine is literally punching holes in Russia's defensive umbrella. They're creating new, safer flight paths for their drones and missiles.
So you might be wondering, why is this strategy of dismantling the war machine from within so incredibly important right now? Well, to understand that, we have to zoom out a bit and look at the whole shifting landscape of international aid, because that gives us the crucial context for everything else.
And that context is, well, pretty stark. According to the Kiel Institute, which is a major German think tank, U.S. aid to Ukraine has basically fallen off a cliff, down by an unbelievable 99%. That near-total collapse of support from its biggest ally has forced Ukraine into a major strategic pivot towards self-reliance.
But hold on, that's not the entire story. The very same report points out that as American support has cratered, European allies have dramatically stepped up to the plate. They've increased their help to a level that almost, and that word almost is key here, offsets the American shortfall. And here's a perfect example of what that looks like in practice. A recent aid package from the UK worth £500 million. What's really interesting is that part of that money is specifically set aside to buy US-made equipment for Ukraine. It's a really creative workaround to keep vital gear flowing even when direct government aid has stalled out.
So, when you put all of these pieces together, what you're really seeing is this incredible and brutal clash of strategies. It's like we're watching two fundamentally different ideas about how to win a modern war play out right in front of our eyes.
Let's just break it down real simple. On one side, you've got Russia's strategy. Hit civilian infrastructure and the energy grid with these massive barrages. The whole point is to break morale and create a crisis. Then you have Ukraine's strategy. Focus on military logistics and industrial assets. Use surgical strikes to cripple the war machine and choke off its money. One is broad and designed to inflict terror. The other is precise and economic, designed to inflict paralysis.
And all of this leaves us with the central burning question of this conflict right now. In a long grinding war of attrition, which of these strategies is actually going to win out? Is it the one that targets a nation's will to fight by terrorizing its cities? Or is it the one that targets a nation's ability to fight by taking apart its war machine piece by piece? Really, the entire outcome of the war hangs on the answer to that very question.